guest is a first-time guest of Epiphany, a dedicated licensed master social worker with a commitment to trauma-informed care and mental health advocacy. He brings a wealth of academic knowledge and practical expertise to his practice. He specializes in ADHD, anxiety, depression, bereavement, grief, men's issues, stress management, and trauma. And he is from the Chaldean community. Please welcome Randy Kass-Shamoun. Thanks for joining us, Randy.
Oh, you're welcome. How are you?
I'm great. So so much to talk to you about, but tell us a little bit about your background. What led you into this field? When did you realize you wanted to go into therapy?
So, Vanessa, I worked medicine for over 20 years, and I would always help these people. I did a lot of EMS, and I worked in the emergency room. I would help people with their problems, and people would come in, and they would always try to talk to me about what they were going through, and I would try to give them advice. And the problem with that was I would help them and then be like, okay, you can go on your way now, move them, drop them off to the hospital, or admit them to the hospital, send them to the floors, and I would never see them ever again. And I would struggle a lot of the times because I would always wonder, I wonder what happened to that person. I wonder how they're doing, how they're, what happened in their future. And when COVID hit and things were getting a little rocky with the hospital system, I decided, I want to continue doing this. And I decided to go and continue my education and become a therapist. And now I can actually help people and see them through their struggles.
That's wonderful. And you also have an interest, particularly with working with men and Chaldean men, particularly. Tell us about that, Randy.
Absolutely. I think our Chaldean community, especially the men, we have this persona of, we're strong, we're men. We don't talk about our problems. We don't, have to deal with this. We have to suck it up and just do what we have to do. And that plays a toll on a person, holding on to a lot of this stress and anxiety that we feel as Chaldean men, we are not allowed to show. And I just wanted to bring that to light to help people, especially our Chaldean men, realize that it's okay to talk to somebody about your problems. Everybody has problems, and this is very normal.
Mm-hmm. Is there value to with men having a kind of a support group too, not just going to therapy, but having each other? Because there's issues, Randy, men deal with that you can't really, your wife can't relate to, and vice versa. There's girls have, I think, more apt to have a network of sisterhood than maybe men with a brotherhood. Can you kind of speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. I think as Chaldean men, we surround ourselves with people just like us, and unfortunately, people just like us don't want to talk about our problems, and we try to bury that. And hey, let's do men's things. Let's go out and get a couple of drinks and have some cigars and talk about sports, and let's not talk about our problems. I absolutely think that it has a lot of value. I actually have quite a few of my patients that are Chaldean men, that I actually see the two friends and have now told me that their friendship, that they both know that they're both going to therapy and are actually able to have these healthy conversations about their struggles and about their lives, and how just seeing me as not the only thing that's helped them, but also realizing that they have this brotherhood of someone else that is going through the same problems that they're having, has helped them so much more.
So, Ray, what are some of the typical issues men face today, whether they're married or not, fathers or not? What are some of the struggles they face, and particularly not men in general, and then Chaldean men or ethnic men, from different cultures?
So, as much as I want to say, different cultures, I feel like even they all fall into the same category as Chaldean men. We all have, in America here, we have, we're a lot more open on our feelings and discussing and beliefs and things like that. But unfortunately, when you come from a different culture, especially being a firstborn generation or coming to America at a very young age, a lot of cultures are very similar in that aspect of, you're not supposed to talk about this stuff, and you're not supposed to this is taboo. You know, you're supposed to just deal with it. Or and a lot of times is, you know, it's the not trying to throw blame, but I love my parents, but it's the parents, because this is what they're pushing onto their kids, and now their kids feel like, well, mom and dad told me this is how I'm supposed to feel, so I'm going to continue feeling this way. Um, so it's almost kind of like a struggle between two different cultures. Um, we have the wherever you're from, other than America, the Middle East, Asia, um, the Philippines, wherever it may be. A lot of the beliefs are all the same. So now we're like stuck between this rock and a hard place. It's like I'm an American and I live in America, and this is their beliefs. But I wasn't raised that way. I was raised in a completely different way.
Mm. And you focus on different aspects, including stress and anxiety and depression, and that has been on the rise. You talked about COVID. That's been on the rise from since COVID. Do you deal with teenagers at all, or are you dealing mostly with young adult men?
Oh no, I see ages 5 and older.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think yes, yes. So I see a lot of that, especially now with our young men, that were very young during COVID and had to deal with that. Absolutely. I think that played a very big factor on their beliefs and their anxiety and their depression. Because of what they had to go through, the not being able to interact with others in class, or having to do Zoom classes, or unable to go to parks or playgrounds or anything like that. I think that is most definitely has our younger generation has retracted from being able to have that interaction with actual other humans.
Yeah. We all know what that isolation did to not just kids, but all of us. There was, and seniors
Absolutely.
were suffering. A lot of people were suffering. And I don't want to get into detail, but you probably heard it. We dealt with a tragedy in our own community with a young girl. I'm not
Yeah.
going to get her name. I'm not going to give out any
Yep.
information, but took her own life. And it's talk all over the community. And I don't know the details. I don't know the family background. I know nothing. I just want to bring up the fact that what signs can we look for? And I'm not trying to point at this family, but just for helping parents today, this is tragic. My heart broke. I couldn't even work the rest of the day. I'm going to tell you, Randy, when I heard this,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
could not work. I heard it that morning. I did my show and I couldn't do it. I needed other work. I couldn't work with clients. I canceled my afternoon. I was so stressed out about this as a parent.
No,
Um,
absolutely. It hit me pretty hard when I heard about it. I mean, I was at work all day yesterday. When I got out of work, I had saw it, and I saw it on social media, and it really affected me. And I'm actually excited. I'm glad that not excited, but I'm glad that you brought this up,
yeah.
because I think this is a very big focal point on our community, especially the parents. Of young children, young adults. We tend to think that it happens to everybody else. It's never going to happen to me.
Hmm.
The signs to look for, right? We think, oh, my kid's happy, right? And it was big, especially when Robin Williams took his own life. The big. Just because it's usually the happiest people that are the ones that you need to worry the most about. You need to check in on. Checking in on your family members and being able to sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation. Hey, I know you're happy, but is everything okay? Are you good? I want you to understand that I am here. I am present whenever you need me. You are my child. You are my brother. You are my sister. You are my mother, my father. I am here. I am present. I am always here
Yeah.
to listen to you.
Yeah. Randy, and we know as parents too, teenagers, our brains don't develop till at least 25 years old, right? The human
Hmm.
brain. So kids think differently, and one thing goes wrong, and I'm not discounting any child. I'm just saying, having had a teenager myself, right? I have a teenager myself. They view things differently than adults do because they're teenagers, right? Their brain, and they think one
Absolutely.
thing happens and it's way worse than it is. And this too shall pass. The kids like this, you think this is horrible and embarrassing or whatever, it's all going to be okay. You know what I mean? It's all going to be okay. You're going to get through this. And sometimes they look at something happening and they live so publicly because of social media. Can you kind of
Hmm.
speak to that too? I mean, the trauma for children is exasperated because they can't escape like I did and you did when we were younger because we didn't have social media growing up.
Absolutely, absolutely. The big thing is I even do this with I have young kids. My oldest is 10, but I do this with him a lot, and I always try to when things go wrong, I remind him and I put myself in a scenario. I will give him a scenario that I experienced myself as a young adult, as a child, on what I had gone through that is similar to what he's going through and helping him understand, I understand what you're going through. I know it's tough and I know that
Yeah.
you're being pulled in all sorts of directions. Social media is telling you this, but remember, it's social media. Those people don't know exactly what you're going through. You may think that they know exactly what you're going through, but you're not. And I may not know exactly what you're going through, but at the same time, like these are some of the tips that this is how I got through it. I know it's going to be the end of the world, but I just want you to know that this experience happened to me that is very similar. And these are some of the things on how I got through it, right? My mom
Yeah.
was there for me, my dad was there for me, and I had friends that I was able to turn to. Do I have, if you don't want, I tell my son this all the time. I'm like, sometimes I understand that I'm your dad and you don't want to turn to me and you're embarrassed to talk to me about it. But you know what? You also have, and this is what we do as therapists as a whole. My initial intake when I'm talking to the person for the very first time, I always ask, is there someone in your life other than your family members that you feel 100% comfortable to turn to and actually be able to open up to? No? Okay, maybe do you think that you would be able to find someone that could actually relate to you and be able to speak to you that you trust as much as you trust, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, so on and so forth. Um, it's very, very important to help your kids realize that you're always there for them, but is there someone else that you feel like you can turn to that, you know, is grounded at that moment, right? You're their go-to and they're your go-to, right?
Yeah.
And that comfort, right? Okay, this is something serious. I trust this person to actually go and get me help if they can't help me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. It's so important. You make such a good point, Randy. Kass-Shamoun is who we're talking to here today from the Lilybrook Counseling Services in Troy, is to have that important support group. You know what I mean? Those friends that
Hmm.
you can rely on and outside your therapist too. And sometimes it's not your parents. I always pray my daughter finds good sisters in Christ, that she can rely on.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of speak to that a little bit, Randy, from a Catholic, our faith perspective? We're Catholics, Chaldeans are Catholics. How can we incorporate our faith with our work with our therapist and our healing and whatever we might be going through?
A lot of times, I mean, it's very important to actually find a therapist that does have faith that can actually relate to you on that level and understand what your faith means to you and what faith in general means to you. Um, and that's your first key. I know that the diocese actually has a list of Catholic therapists that if you're having trouble finding anyone online,
Yeah.
you can actually go to the diocese, the Archdiocese of Detroit, and they have a full list of Catholic therapists that you can actually turn to actually be able to incorporate that, right? Um, I always said that it's interesting. I feel I've been in contact with Father Chad Rippinger a little bit. Him and I have exchanged emails for a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a priest, he's an exorcist, but he's also a psychologist.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I've interviewed him.
and
Hmm.
and he reminds me a lot of the demons that we struggle with. But and this is something I always tell my patients, right? We have those anxiety. So I listened to a speaker one time. One of my mentors sent me his video, and he was doing an interview. He was on stage and he asked a question to the audience, which is a bunch of therapists, social workers, psychologists. What is anxiety? And everybody started answering all these, textbook answers. And he's like, what if I tell you you're all wrong? He's like, what if I tell you that anxiety a lot of times is no more than a demon that's trying to bring you down, right?
Mm-hmm.
When can the devil get to us is at our weakest moment, right? But a
Yeah.
lot of times we don't remember. He's like, you remember those cartoons you used to watch when you were a kid, to where the angel popped up on one shoulder and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
devil popped up on others.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
we didn't realize how true that really was, right?
Yeah.
Our anxiety is just that, right? It's
Yeah.
whispering in our heads, you're not good enough, you
Yeah.
can't succeed, you're not going to be able to do this, you should take your life, right? And then you
Yeah.
have on the other side, the angel's like, you are good enough. You can do this. Everybody loves you, but
Yeah.
if you're asked to substitute a fourth grade classroom, just sit there and you don't have to do anything. Just make sure they don't kill each other, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
you have a kid that's sitting there on the side and he's doing all his homework and he's quiet and he's doing everything you're asking him to do. And then you have another kid in the back of the classroom that's causing ruckus and mayhem and just being loud. Who are you going to pay more attention to? You're going to pay attention to the kid in the back of the classroom that's being loud, right?
Yeah.
That's the demon, right?
Yeah.
That's the demon that's screaming in our ears. We don't listen to that little kid that's sitting right next to us that is doing everything. That's our guardian angel.
Yeah.
Right? I always,
Wow. Yeah. What a great
yeah.
analogy. Yeah. Wow, Randy, that's a great analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that and you're right, and the enemy could be so loud in our head, these
Absolutely.
negative thoughts. And I know I just was reading a book from a doctor, an MD. He actually wrote about ruts and these like repeated unwanted thoughts in our head.
Mhm.
That could be very, I just was talking about scrupulosity the other day with another therapist, and that could be the enemy in our head constantly telling us how bad we are, along with the combination of spiritual warfare, but also mental illness or mental issues too. It's a combination. That's why, to
Absolutely.
your point, that you really should be seeking out a Catholic therapist, to identify what
Absolutely.
might be going on. Great points. Anything else you want to share? What else do you want our listeners to know about your practice, and any issues that you want us to be cognizant about, about today from your perspective as a Catholic therapist?
Other than, with the men's health, I mean, if I'm going to start with the young kids first, this is going out to a lot of the parents. And, in our community, as much as I hate to say it, we think, oh, you're going to see a therapist there, you must be, as much as I hate to say this, when I changed professions, I love my father to death, but when I told him what I was going to go back to school for, and he looked at me and he was like, so you're going to deal with crazy people? And I'm like, Dad, that's not
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and a lot of the parents and I think that, right?
It's
I
a
was saying, you
stigma.
must be
It's a stigma. Yeah.
absolutely, you have
Hmm.
to be crazy to go and seek a therapist. No, absolutely not. You know what? As kids, the younger you are to get in here to be able to overcome these challenges,
Yeah.
the healthier you are going to become as an adult.
Yeah.
And it's not that stigma of you have to be crazy to go see a therapist, right? We all need a therapist. I have my own therapist, and I am a
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah.
Um, that's
Yeah.
that's one of the big things that I wanted to touch on with our parents, our listeners out there. Just because don't let the what other people, the talk of worry of what other people are going to think affect your children.
Yeah. And you don't need,
You
nobody
know,
needs to know anyway, but this is the reality, Randy. The culture can be very crazy. And we
absolutely,
need help from a therapist to help us navigate the insanity, the crazy in the culture in the world today, because we are living in a very anti-Christian culture. And so it's hard to navigate this alone. We're adults and we struggle. Imagine a child whose brain is still developing trying to navigate this
absolutely,
crazy. So thank you for that
absolutely,
point. And I'd love to have you back on. We'll talk more. There's so
absolutely.
much. There's ongoing stuff. It never ends.
I can sit here and talk for
For
hours.
hours. Me too. Me too. It was a pleasure to have you on. I look forward
I
to having you back on.
appreciate it.
Andrew, my producer, has your information, so we'll go to you again for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
so much for having me
Thanks.
today.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. God bless you and all that you do. Randy Kass-Shamoun with us here today, a therapist, joining us, speaking with us about mental health issues and, all the areas that he practices. We focus mostly on stress management, anxiety, depression, and other issues with men and teenagers. But he is from the Lilybrook Counseling Services in Troy, specializing in ADHD, anxiety, depression, bereavement, grief, men's issues, stress management, trauma. And he sees children 5 years and older, teens 13 to 17, adults 18 and older, focusing a lot on Chaldean men as well.